started. This panel we're calling Colorado Connections, and we are showcasing the work of 3 nonprofits here in the state and the work that they're doing. It is a pleasure to introduce Khristine Rogers, who serves as State Director for Senior Planet and OATS, Older Adults Technology Services. Janine Vanderburg, the Director and Chief Catalyst for Changing the Narrative, and Karen Brown, the Director of Changing the Narrative's AgeFriendly Workplace Initiative. And I will add that Karen wears more hats than anybody I know, and is just amazing and has been very helpful. All 3 have been very helpful with this conference, but a special thanks to Karen for everything that you've done. So how we're going to do our panel, it's going to be awkward to jump up back and forth, so we're all just going to stay put where we are. And each panelist has a great story to tell about their organization. So I am just going to turn this over to you, Khristine, and ask you to go first.
Certainly. Thank you so much, Catherine. And Senior Planet Colorado Older Adults Technology Services is delighted to be a part of this conversation today and share some stories about what we're finding in terms of how all of the themes that we're discussing really are manifesting and applying to the lives of experienced workers in our state. Senior Planet, and I apologize, I don't have the clicker, but we'll get the clicker there, and we're delighted to be able to share the story of joining the nonprofit landscape here in Colorado in 2018. I want to particularly thank the Next 50 initiative because we have come with their support here to the state. Older Adults Technology Services was formed in 2004, founded by Dr. Tom Camber, with the intent of harnessing technology to change the experience of aging. And I think the key way that that applies to our conversation today is that technology has certainly been a big part of our discussion. The need for technology skills to be relevant and current, not only for experienced workers to be well-positioned to re-enter, stay in employment, upskill, reskill, so that they can grow into positions that they would like, is so important. And then from an employer perspective, understanding what are the expectations and needs for technology so that we can help, in Brian's words, be good matchmakers between employers who value experienced workers and bridge to the very experienced, energetic, enthusiastic, and engaged people who want to work in our state. And I'm sorry here, Catherine, I'm having trouble. The technology person can't get the clicker to work here. So again, the overall mission of OATS is to harness technology to change the way we age. And when we look at workforce development initiatives, that's one of our key impact areas, in addition to supporting learning, creativity, advocacy, health, and social connection. So we look at financial security and work as one of the key impact areas that we bring forward. We do this in a number of ways by supporting experienced workers, and for us, our programs are designed and our member experience is designed for people aged 60 and older. We have a variety of resources that include 5- and 10-week courses delivered by part-time employees who are experienced trainers, and the content ranges from foundational digital literacy to courses like Work, how to job seek in the current digital environment, courses that look at entrepreneurial efforts like creating one's own website. And through these experiences that we offer, we're able to hopefully equip people with the self-efficacy, the confidence, and the ability to demonstrate the relevance of their skills and find those good matches for the type of employment that they want. Oftentimes, when someone first gets to know us, they'll come in, they'll be interested in either signing up for a course or maybe experiencing an Explore Technology lecture. And they'll often say, where should I start? What's my first course? And our question is always, what do you want to do? How do you want to use or harness technology to live the way you want to live, to work the way you want to? And work consistently is growing as an answer to the question, what do you want to do with technology? So in Colorado, we came to the state in 2018 and began delivering courses through partner locations, including workplace centers, again, with a range of courses from foundational to very specific work-related content. Then in October of last year at Lowry Hangar 2 here in Denver, we opened a state-of-the-art technology experience where learning and the experience of the center is available to Coloradans, again, age 60 and older. These are photos that were taken right before we opened the center. And the reason I wanted to share these still shots is that our environment is very intentional. It was designed to have that effect of, wow, this isn't necessarily what I would have expected. And we often have people ask, is there any waiver for that 60 plus criteria to join Senior Planet? Because in addition to our courses, our center offers co-working space that provides a unique ability for people not only to gather, but if we were all at Lowry right now, most likely we would see a number of people who have come in with their laptops or their devices. They've pulled up in a place like this Nook, which can be a great spot. And right now is first come, first served in terms of being able to use this space to work and really develop the skills to hopefully bring forward to age-friendly employers who value experience, who care about people, again, who are energized, experienced, enthusiastic, and engaged in the work environment. The center located at Lowry Hangar 2, we certainly warmly invite any of you to come and see firsthand what this initiative is doing in the state, how we're supporting older adults who want to work on their terms and find connections with employers who value that. And we look forward to the continued conversation, not only here in the next 45 minutes or so, but ongoing. And with that, I hand off to my colleague, Janine.
And the beautiful thing is I only have one slide. So there it is. Okay, so that's going to be it while Karen and I are talking. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Janine Vanderburg with Changing the Narrative in Colorado. How many of you, before I kind of go into what we do, have been to one of our workshops or presentations? Can you raise your hand? If you have not raised your hand, I'm finding you right after this. You've got to do it. So Changing the Narrative in Colorado is an initiative to really change the way people think, talk, and act about aging, about older adults, and about ageism. And really the end game is to have the workplaces, the public policies that are more favorable in light of all of the demographic changes that you've heard about today. Karen told me before we came out, she's like, you don't need to do your usual slide on demographic change because everybody else will have. So thank you, Karen. Because we didn't. So here's what we do to change a lot of it. And first, I need to acknowledge my two funders who are both here, Next 50 Initiative and Rose Community Foundation. because really changing the narrative is really kind of think of it as a social startup. We started something that nobody else across the country had done. We took the principles of Frameworks Institute, the research-based messages that are known to shift public opinion, and nobody else really brought it to the ground. So there was not a blueprint for doing it. So we have made it up. And every time I've been able to go to my program officer at Next 50 or to Therese Ellery at Rose, they've been like, okay, let's try this. So, and thank you. I've been, chairs in the room, Diana, Mark was somewhere. Hi, Mark, and Therese Ellery of Rose. So anything that we have done to be successful has been because of their efforts and insight and innovation. So, so what do? We started by doing workshops, Frameworks Institute workshops on reframing aging. And from that, we realized that a lot of older people themselves have internalized ageism. So we've started now doing workshops with older adults because we can do all that we can with employers. But if the older person themselves says, I don't know if I'm ready for that training or that kind of thing. So we started a series of workshops on that. I'm going through what my week has been like, which is just an illustration of the range that we do in changing the narrative. So one of the things we do are presentations, educational sessions with aging advocates. So Monday night, Jody, I was at your place at CU Institute's campus. They were holding a wonderful event, and I got to keynote. One of the things we do are intergenerational conversations to bring younger people and older people together to talk about what kind of stereotypes are out there. And so on Tuesday, I was able to facilitate 2 roundtables at a social innovator breakfast, talking to younger people and older people about what are the stereotypes that any of us face based on our age in workforce. And so I know we're talking about older people here, but younger people really hate being called entitled, is what I learned. And they don't like the assumption that they're spending their paycheck on avocado toast. That was my big learning from Tuesday. I then segued to doing a webinar for Encore leaders in the Encore movement across the country. So for those of you who are not familiar with Encore.org, what they have really been the leaders. They've been the leaders in this whole idea that we have value as we age, and that value can be a benefit to community and the workforce. So it was amazing to be able to share with them some research-based messaging that they could use to inform their advocacy on behalf of older people. So then we segue, here we are today, and I'll talk to a moment of how we got into workplace. But tomorrow is the event that I am most terrified about. About 2 weeks ago, a 6th grade teacher from a Denver charter school called me and said, my students are studying ageism. Would you come and give a talk? And I was like, sure. I put it down on my list. It's tomorrow morning. I'm absolutely terrified. I have no problem speaking at conferences or in any setting, but the idea of doing 2 sessions with 6th graders. So if there are any 6th grade teachers out there who want to give me advice after. We also spend a lot of time talking to the media to help shape the way that they build stories. So I spent time on the phone this week with a reporter who was doing a story about, quote, the silver tsunami, and pointing out silver tsunami is not an accurate term. One, how long have we known about the aging of America, right? It's not unexpected. It's not a tsunami. And by the way, we really aren't a wreck, and we don't wreck everything. So how did we get to workforce? And then I'm going to turn it over to Karen to talk about what we're actually doing in Age-Friendly Workplace Initiative. We got to workforce, which was not part of our original plan in this way. In 2018, our first year, I did 42 workshops across the state in Colorado. At every single workshop, when we talked about ageism and how it played out in workforce, somebody came up to me, some brave souls raised their hand and said, that ageism thing you're talking about, it happened to me. It happened to my partner. It happened to my dad. And this is, to me, a signal of how wonderful our funders are. I went back and I said, we need to reframe the older worker in the view of employer. And they were like, sure, fine, let's go with it. So what we initially did, I think there may be still a few left. We compiled the research that are done by many people in this room. So we've got, the ARP research in here. We've got Transamerica research. We weren't doing original research. And we built the business case for employers. We eventually called it the Age-Friendly Workplace Initiative, and I'm going to turn it over to Karen to say what exactly that is.
Well, it was really a wonderful opportunity, and the timing, I must say, couldn't be better. Given that we know that unemployment in the U.S. is at a 50-year low, unemployment in Colorado, we are somewhere around 2.5, 2.4, 2.6%. So employers are very keen to figure out how do they expand the talent pipeline. So the Changing the Narrative Age-Friendly Workplace Initiative has had the opportunity to present in 29 different forums last year, probably in about the last half of the year, presenting to more than 900 people. That encompassed chambers of commerce, businesses, civic organizations. We had a great opportunity to really have a dialogue about basically dispelling some of the myths associated with the aging population, some of which we've heard from previous presentations. And I am disappointed we do not have the graph to show, because I assumed everybody would have had this up to just really put in people's mind, what are we facing demographically? I think that the woman from AARP suggested that people will evolve and they'll start to recognize the value of employing the older population. I would suggest they will have no alternative. There will be no alternative. For example, in the state of Colorado, to replace our population takes 2.1 births per young mother or couple. 2.1. We are actually producing babies at the rate of 1.65. And there's actually one of our partners in Fort Collins who heads up the Age-Friendly Workplace Initiative. Kim Hayes is in the back. She's actually been operating as a gynecologist for decades, and she's saying, I now have women coming in at 35 and 40 saying, you know, I'm not sure, we may be having a baby soon. We're not sure. We're thinking about having one. You know, I look at my own family and I say, you know, great-grandma had 11 children. Grandma had 5. Mom had 3. I had 1. That is where we're headed. So in terms of the employer, they're going to have to look very closely at the entire talent pipeline. We do look a little bit at some specific examples. We offer examples, like you suggested, of, you know, what can we do to ban the box so that we're not looking at when we graduate high school or college. We offer these examples to employers. And then we really focus more in this sort of the 7-county area. We've not expanded statewide, but we've had a lot of interest from those that we've presented to.
Well, very good. Thank you. I have a question for each of you, and it's kind of a two-parter, you know, trying to pack it all in. But in your work, and we'll start with you, Khristine, in your work, what do you consider to be one of your organization's greatest surprises and successes? So surprises in a good way.
The surprise has been consistent with our conversation today, and I think the frequency of people who answer the question, why do you want to learn technology, with the answer being work. So I think that one of the things that's presented us with is some stories that really illustrate how in demand the ability to not only have access to employers who value and care about looking at all options, including bringing on energetic, enthusiastic employees with great skills. When we opened our Senior Planets Technology Center just 4 months ago, one of the first indications was we had a woman who had worked with her employer to be able to have time off during the day to be able to come to one of our training classes. And we thought, this is a great sign. Again, being open 4 months, we've seen an exciting but a ramp up of people getting to know us, coming in for the first time. So we noted that. We noted that there was a growing demand of people who had asked, can we have evening courses because we're working during the day? So we're looking at responding to that demand with the addition of some evening classes. But I think the most impactful story that I can share that recognizes the pleasant surprise of how in demand reskilling and technology skills for employment purposes is real is there is a woman who not only is a Senior Planet member, but a volunteer who was sharing with us many of the things that Karen and Janine had talked about, concerned about her not only interest in working, but her need to work, but feeling like because of her age that it was the number that employers would see and value, not her experience. So over the course of less than a month, as she was interviewing and seeking jobs, she arranged to be interviewed at Senior Planet Center. And she came, so we knew that this was happening. She used our co-working space to do that. And she came in a little bit after her interviewer left and said, "I got the job." So we were really excited that not only she was able to find and generate a job, but that employer now is bringing on a really high quality, experienced, engaged employee. So the demand for the things that we're talking about today, the conversations that we're having and will continue to apply, has been a very welcome thing as we've grown in the state.
Fantastic.
That's such a great, I love that story. So, so mine is less individual stories, but just things that have been happening that I guess a surprise we didn't expect. So one of the things, and I've warned Karen because I think there's going to be another story appearing soon about our initiative. So a year ago, the Denver Post did a story as we were launching all of this about the age-friendly workplace initiative. I was on a beach in Playa del Carmen. It was my husband's birthday, and my phone just starts going crazy. I'm like, what's going on? People that I didn't know had read the story. They had stalked me on LinkedIn, and they were saying, where can I find these jobs? Who are these employers? Whatever. We had not yet done our first presentation. We were just talking about it. So I knew that then that the demand was there. So that was kind of one surprise. The other thing that has happened is when we started this, we didn't know, and we started doing the presentations, we didn't know, are employers going to think this is a good idea? Or are they going to be sitting there saying, who brought this speaker in to our chamber? And Karen's going to talk more about this, but we just started collecting evaluation data on it. And I got to look at it last week. Of the people who have participated in the chamber presentations, 87% of them have said, as a result of the presentation, they are more likely to hire an older worker. So we want to see them actually hire the older worker, but the intent was great. The other thing that has been really, I think, rewarding to us is also workplace centers reaching out. So CJ, Beth Hobbs, I don't know if you're still here. Karen and I went and talked to Arapahoe Douglas Works. So understanding that there's this ecosystem that is being woven in Colorado, working with the SAPCA and Khristine and Tony Tapia on workforce development and having them make this a priority. I can't wait to hear what Kathleen is going to say about the future of work, but it feels like all of a sudden, and this is not, I'm not attributing that to us, but there is an ecosystem of people saying in Colorado, we are ready, we are going to do this, we're going to make it a priority. So I think the governor's prediction that he wants Colorado to be the best for the longevity economy, it's going to happen.
I would say that one of the surprises, well, Janine had experienced already knowing that there was interest in this. We did a presentation at the Douglas County Chamber of Commerce. About 70, 75 companies there, and predominantly companies. At the end of the presentation, there's the usual Q&A, and a hand goes up, 3 or 4 hands go up. Wow, where do I find these people? Where do I go to find a 50-plus person? Like, I have part-time jobs, I have contract jobs, I have 3/4 jobs, I have full-time jobs at every level. Where do I go? It was then that we recognized that while the workforce centers have amazing resources that are comprehensive, there wasn't anything that we'd found yet that was specific to the 50-plus population. So we actually created this resource sheet that actually only has references on here that are specific to the 50-plus. So, for example, one of the things we really promoted was, you know what, you're an employer. Are you familiar with the Back to Work 50-plus program? For those workforce centers that do it, like Teresa Valagretti in Denver, you have a chance to go in as an employer and meet these people. I've actually attended several of these events, and I can tell you that there was not a person there that I wouldn't have hired in some capacity. So that was something that was an eye-opener for them. We actually gave them a listing of at least 5 sites that are specific for recruitment for the 50-plus population, including AARP, but I'll be honest, there are probably another 10 that we didn't put on the list. We only put those that were most prominent. And then we also featured some other unique organizations and companies. The other thing that we heard that we thought was interesting was they were interested in the aging population. And, Brian, it doesn't surprise me a lot that people weren't willing to share what they're doing about this population. If it is a competitive advantage, why would I share? I personally wouldn't share. If this is a way to attract talent and expertise, I'm going to keep it to myself so that I can garner those people. So one of the things that we've done through the Changing the Narrative is we're just rolling it out. We're adding to the AARP certification. Yours is a pledge and voluntary. This is actually the Age-Friendly Employer Certification Program offered through the Age-Friendly Foundation in Boston. And what they do is a confidential review of your policies, your handbook, your information. We actually have in-person meetings, dialogue. We certify locally, and then the Age-Friendly Foundation, through their HR staff and experts, actually validate the certification and then give you a credential. It gives you the opportunity to promote yourself so that if there's somebody who's an older person looking for a job, they know that you value an older person. So we saw this as an opportunity to both provide the resource of where you can find these people, as well as allow companies to differentiate themselves and become certified.
Excellent. Okay, we have one more question, and then we're going to have a little time for Q&A, but we call this our lightning round. And we're going to mix it up. I'm going to call on Janine first. And that is the question for each. So the other two get to think about the lightning round while we put Janine on the spot.
That's probably a dangerous. Okay.
And that is, what is your big wish for the state of Colorado, the one thing that employers can do to make the biggest difference for experienced employees?
That every employer in Colorado would be, and so Karen's already said this, would be not just competing for older workers, because one of the things that's really important to us, and I think several speakers referred to this, it's not older workers versus younger workers, that the best teams are that, the magic is in the mix, I think you said. And that Colorado would be known for that. Now, I know this is unpopular to say in Colorado that we would be a destination for anything, because people want people not to come to Colorado and to leave. But I would love to see people of all ages coming to Colorado because they know it is the best place to live, work, and play.
Okay, Karen,
Okay.
Big wish.
Okay, big wish. It's going to be hard to constrain it to one. I would actually like for all literature to redefine the talent pipeline. The talent pipeline is traditionally thought of as sort of that younger generation, the 25 and under, those coming out of high school, out of college, and those of us kind of working. I mean, we're in there doing something, but the older population is not a part of that dialogue. I mean, I've seen state reports that 2/3 of the report is dedicated to the 25 and under. Maybe close to 1/3 is dedicated to that 25 to 54, and about 100,000 words are dedicated to the aging population. The talent pipeline is everybody from 15 to 85 plus. For those of you who don't know it, there are more than 250,000 people, 85 and over, working full-time.
Fantastic. Khristine.
I would wish that we could accelerate the connection between experienced workers who are seeking work, whether that's to retain their jobs, to work more, to shift careers into an encore type of experience. But the quicker we can marry and create the bridge between people who want to work and employers who value experienced workers, I think we can really continue on the upward trajectory that we're all working towards.
Fantastic. Now I'm looking at our person with the microphone. Want to make sure that we have our microphone at large ready to go. And before we open this up to audience Q&A, since it's kind of the feeling like the 7th inning stretch of sorts of the conference, I thought we might do something kind of fun. And I'm counting on all of you. But as we're standing here, and our panelists all day and our speakers have been so generous with their time, and we know that Janine has a big deadline, that she is conducting workshops with 6th graders tomorrow. And what do you say? So I'm hoping we can have a show of hands of people in the audience with some tips and ideas for Janine.
I love that. I will be your best friend and give you $1. And if you want to do it tomorrow, even better.
Okay, we've got to have people in the audience. Okay, good.
Ageism. And the sixth graders they've been talking about it, and so they sent me a list of questions. And the list of questions included things like, why don't businesses want to hire old people? Does it count as ageism if you agree with the stereotype? So these are like some seriously thoughtful sixth graders.
Anybody have sixth grade? So I'll throw out an idea, but I'm hoping we get at least 3 responses from the audience. I'm going to take for granted, or I'm going to, a leap of faith, that sixth graders are smarter than we are.
That's what I'm afraid about.
Or maybe they are our hope.
Yeah.
and to ask them their perceptions of why these things, these stereotypes exist.
I like that. Writing this down.
Okay. Yay. Okay, we have a hand in the back. My colleague Patty is going to. We're going to have you zigzag across the room. As much as we want to make Patty's life as easy as possible.
One thought that
Hi, Doug.
One thought that comes to mind is asking them, how many of your parents are responsible for an aging adult in their life?
Okay.
And get a sense of what are some of the challenges that you feel they are struggling with or dealing with.
Great question. Thanks, Doug. It's going on my list.
I think also asking them if they have an older adult in their life, a grandparent, a parent. I think sometimes with many of these issues around different demographics of folks who are being underserved, it's hard to picture when you can't really relate. And so maybe making a connection for them about someone and then kind of jumping into the conversation. So,
Great. Thank you.
I start by asking them to tell me how old is old.
That's a good one.
Right. So that you've got a framework, because old might be 30.
Actually, that's true.
That's really a scary thought. And then I would ask them,
Yeah.
how long do they want to work?
Yeah.
And how many careers do they want to have? So they can start.
CJ, what are you doing tomorrow morning?
I'll be there, Janine.
Yeah.
Somebody thought that they were too young.
Janice, love that. Yeah. I think that may be actually why they decided they wanted to talk about ageism. I think it was probably driven by that. Yeah.
How are people prejudiced against that?
This is so great. I should do this every time I have to do a presentation.
And we have more over here.
Right.
I would
Okay.
ask them if they're the technology specialist in their home, and when their grandparents ask them for help, do they teach them or just do it for them?
These are great. I think we have a changing the narrative sixth grade curriculum coming out of
I know.
this.
Well, we're expecting a full report after.
You will get it. You'll get it. Okay.
Ask them, who do you think is smarter, your mother or your grandmother?
Interesting.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. These are great. Thank you so much.
Ask them if they think the presidential candidates can represent them. Is anybody too old to run for president? And what age would they set for someone to be able to run for president?
That's frightening.
Okay. A little bit worried this is a public school where that may go, but all right.
Janine, I would have them write a letter to their 40-year-old self and visualize what that person is going to be like, and then write a letter to their 70-year-old self and what that person would be like.
Okay. These are great.
once you know what they consider old to be, I would have a cadre of images of people, professionals and so forth who are known who would break the myth. I thought our Mick Jagger one, which I've used in the past.
That was great, wasn't it?
Tina Turner is another one. You could play a video of her at 70 dancing.
Yeah.
That would blow people away. So I think that multimedia would also be useful for your generation.
We could do the J-Lo halftime show too, but that might be, that's already had a fair amount of controversy. Okay.
It might
right.
be NC-17 for sixth graders.
Right. Yeah. This is great. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, people may have other questions, so
Yes.
I really, really appreciate this. This is like,
Yes.
I feel like confident now going into the room. So thank you. But if people have questions,
Yes.
of other,
Now we'll
thank you.
Karen has a question.
Well, I actually wondered, can I offer a comment? Because during our call, we had talked about some of the challenges that we might face evolving this perception. And one of the things we discussed, I was at the Denver Rotary, and an ex-CEO had gotten up actually from Gates Rubber Company. And he said, have we improved the dialogue yet? And I said, well, what do you mean? He says, well, as a CEO, I'm very constrained to ask any of my mature workers about, what are you thinking about in terms of your longevity here at the company? Are you thinking you're going to retire next year? Are you going to leave in 3 years? I could be sued. But yet on the employer side, the employer is also very reluctant to step to the CEO or to his boss or her boss and say, I'm thinking I'd like to retire in 5 years, fearful that, okay, the next go-round, I'm gone. So I would be curious to know if there's been does anybody have any great suggestions, or like how have we made progress on this front? Or are we making progress on this front? Because we really have to engage a little bit more communication. And I think you had actually said, Catherine, that you've seen this in some of your other work.
In my travels all the time, when I speak at conferences or meet with people, there is, and we'll call it a structural lag or structural gap. Employees, rightly so, not wanting to raise the issue. If they mention the R word, retirement, they might find themselves retired before they're actually ready to do so. And employers fear about potential liability. And to say there's a conversation, there is no conversation. The whole communications are at an impasse until we can open up lines of communication so that employees feel confident that they can talk about it without prematurely ending their careers, and that employers can have the conversations too, so that they're not worried about potential age discrimination or other liability.
That might be, can you guys weave that into your interviews with the next 30 companies that you talk with here in Colorado?
Yes, we can. As I'm looking at Brian. Yes.
Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Catherine, because so many of the opportunities when we talk about flexibility, transitions, a sabbatical for whatever reason, caregiving time, time to go back to school. These are things that are of great interest to people of all ages, not just older workers. And this is an inclusion by design. If we can design for all, be inclusive and design for all, we can solve many, many problems, not just honoring, attracting, and valuing experienced employees. It's valuing all employees.
I'm going to add just one more comment. I think Claire Boozer Cruz is in the back there. She and I had a dialogue, and she was actually really talking about, we redefine careers. If we're going to have a work life of 60 years plus, do we really want to have it be we go to work for a company and we work full time, and from the time we're 20 until we're 80? Maybe we have a whole different cycle of careers. We work part-time, we're off, we work full-time, we work with sabbatical, so that we have this complete evolution and that it fits our lifestyle. So it takes the concept of flexibility to the extreme.
Yeah. Any other questions for the audience? Okay, I'm going to ask each of our...
Catherine, one over here.
Oh.
Hi, Claire Cruz. Since she just called me out, I want to make sure I recognize that was Laura Carstenson's original theory. So heavily borrowed from her concepts and lots of research on that topic. So not just my own thinking. I completely agree with her, but great research from her if anybody's interested in it. Laura Karstensen. Oh, okay.
Oh, do you have a question?
Yes, at Stanford. Yes.
Okay, so all three of you, where can people go to learn more about your organizations?
So for Senior Planet, please go to seniorplanet.org and you can learn not only about our work in Colorado, but in our other locations across the country.
And if you go back to our slide, so changingthenarrativeco.org has information about everything that we do, all that we're doing around age-friendly intergenerational workplaces, including the new partnership with AgeFriendly Foundation to offer certification for age-friendly businesses is on this site, Age-Friendly Intergenerational Workplaces. So just take a picture of that and you can find us. Or you can, reach out to Karen or me. But great. Thank you all so much. I feel this was so, I know it's not over, but just to see and hear so many people doing so many pieces and feeling, okay, we're not just making this up. This is great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you to all of our panelists.